Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and we're going to have a conversation from the heart. Normally you'll see me glance down to my right, that's where my iPad typically is. I have some bullet points, some things I want to make sure I mention. Today's video, I want to speak from the heart because we're talking about the dark future of gaming. This week, while we had some news that we expected with PlayStation Plus getting overhauled, it does signify a strong change for our industry as the big three, PlayStation, Nintendo, and of course, as we've already known, Xbox, all have their own versions of subscription services announced. And while they all have different philosophies and feelings about how they want to move gaming forward, we're all progressing towards one unified digital future. And there's some pros to that. There are also some cons to that. And this video may have some energy of an old man shouting at a cloud. While I'm 26, I will totally admit I'm a bit of an old head when it comes to games, right? I like my instruction manuals, as many of you've seen in Retro Rebound. I love to open them up, look at the art in them. I love the physical copies of games, and I know many of you out there do as well, but some of you are for the digital future. This is something that I wanted to bring to light now that we have full information on PlayStation Plus, we have full information on Nintendo Switch Online, and we have full information on Xbox Game Pass, and talk about where we're heading as an industry. Again, old man shouts at cloud type energy here. I get it, but if you're new here and you're interested in video game conversations, that's what we talk about every single day, and I love it. So consider subscribing. Now, for those who have been under a rock and you didn't see what happened this week with PlayStation, they announced PlayStation Plus, which was already a thing, but they overhauled that and they separated it into 3 tiers. Now, these 3 tiers included things like backwards compatibility via streaming, some of those games being downloadable, and offering a large library of 400 games through the PS4 and PS5 library, all available to download. That is much like Xbox Game Pass, which offers hundreds upon hundreds of games, some of them day and date, especially if they're first-party studios, through a $15 a month subscription service where you can access it on your PC, you can access it on your Xbox family of consoles, you can stream it to your phone through xCloud. All of these services right now are providing a library of games for X amount of dollars a month because gaming is absolutely a luxury, and that's where this service thrives. As someone who grew up with literally no money, I used to go to GameStop. I remember I spent $90, which was a huge deal for me. I spent $90 there, and they had a return policy where if you didn't like the game you bought that was used, you could return it. And so every week after school on Friday, I would drive to my GameStop and I would return a bulk of games that I didn't like, but I really just blazed through that week and played because I loved video games. I want to be a part of these new releases, but I would buy everything used and continue to return them to GameStop because video games are, as much as they matter to all of us, let's be real, a luxury. It is a luxury, and it is an expensive one at that. $60 now, $70 a pop. It's a lot of money to keep up in this industry. So that was my way of getting in, right? And for a lot of people, these subscription services, especially very competitive ones like Game Pass, we don't know what PlayStation's going to offer in the terms of a game library, like how soon after release will certain games hit that library. But at least with Xbox Game Pass, people can wait, I don't know, half a year, and some new games that have come out will already be on the service. And so some people are learning to be patient with game releases, which they always should be. I say a million times, if I were not a content creator, I would be waiting months and months to buy new stuff because anything you're getting day and date isn't complete. I hate to say it. It can be feature complete, but tech-wise, it's almost never quite there. There's always work left to be done. And that's always been the case, right? That's why we got greatest hits games on PS2 that would patch games up, like Budokai 3, for example. I know it's a bit of an obscure reference, but that would add things to the game because they got to re-release it and they didn't have updates back then, so they would print a whole new disc for it. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. My point being is this type of subscription service model allows people to get into video games a lot easier, and it saves them ultimately a lot of money because it also goes on the side of, hey, you try a game out on the service that you were thinking about buying and you didn't like it. Well, guess what? You're good. You didn't buy it. It's a part of your subscription service. So money saved there. That's where the good really lies in this model moving forward. Is the library of games that you can experience, that you can get into. Again, as someone who had no money, I get it. Getting in that library, feeling out these games, And in a lot of ways, I think it's powerful, taking power from the reviewers that are just holding scores over everyone's head and instead leveling that playing field to get more people to play those games. It's kind of like how E3 opened up access to the people. It's something I was for because at the end of the day, a lot of our opinions here on the internet are glorified, and I want to hear more from all of you. And that's much more meaningful when you get to play the games that we're all playing. So that's really the best of the best right there. The access, the consolidation of your library, you have more space in your home. That's something I'm struggling with right now as I continue to collect video games. It's tough. You got to really pick and choose now until I get maybe a bigger house one day. Who knows? Someone offer me a mansion. That'd be great. But those are the two pros I can really think of: convenience and access to a library that is much more affordable. I know a lot of this may sound like things you've heard before, you already knew, but I wanted to be fair in presenting the good in what was a negatively toned video. I wanted to be fair and make sure I acknowledge what is great about all of this. Now, it's time for the old man to shout at his cloud. Here's where I'm kind of nervous about where things are going. I talked about this towards the end of my PlayStation video, talking about the Plus overhaul, on how I'm very disappointed with companies monetizing backwards compatible libraries. And I don't point the finger really at PlayStation right away because they're following suit to something Nintendo started to do. Nintendo launched their Nintendo Switch online subscription program. It's albeit much cheaper, but what they would do is each month add in a little bit here, a little bit there for NES, then SNES games. Now we know they have N64 games, they have Sega Genesis games. These are games that originally you could go on your Wii, your Wii U, your 3DS. You could go on to the virtual console, download these games, and play them totally fine. Now Nintendo is stripping down that service to force you down the route of paying for the subscription service so you can access those old games you already owned. And they're intentionally not doing virtual console because of that. And I feel like PlayStation, while it's constantly been perpetuated that they could simply never figure out how to get PS3 games to run on PS4 or PS5 because of the cell architecture, I say when there's a will, there's a way. Look, Xbox found a way to get 50 Cent Blood in the Sand backwards compatibility. They circumnavigated a metric ton of legality by making that game physical only, so you put the disc in, you can't download it. They found a way to get stuff like that working, and there are many other achievements in their back compat program that, yes, it took effort, it took time, it took focus, and I know there isn't a return on value, but I think it should be expected of these console owners of two things. One, that you should have access to your old library. It should just be that simple. And number two is you shouldn't have to pay for online, which all these fellas are guilty of, unfortunately. And it's really sad to see that. But when I see what Nintendo's doing with backwards compatibility, it's something I expanded upon in a video on Retro Rebound called Nintendo Doesn't Care About You, where I just really ranted my brains out about how they were driving consumers in an unfair manner towards a specific product that they shouldn't have been forced into buying, because people are going to go, well, these games on eBay are super expensive, taken from a collector. They're super expensive over there when you're looking at the NES, SNES games that you just want to reminisce on and enjoy. So you can't buy the original stuff. And Nintendo puts it in a subscription program, and many of them are missing. And so Nintendo's just creating a legacy of pirates in the meantime, mind you. And then you throw PlayStation in the mix, which has, I would argue for me, a stronger sense of nostalgia. Growing up, PlayStation 2 was my system. So things like Sly Cooper, of course Sly Cooper, Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank to a lesser extent, PS2 games that were brought to PS3 through HD collections are streamable only. And when we saw what PlayStation tried to do last year, which I think a lot of people forget, which is take down the PS3 store, take down the Vita store. They already took down the PSP store, right? They tear all these down because I told everyone, I warned everyone, they're going to drive it through a subscription program just like Nintendo did. And they're doing exactly that. It's why on Retro Rebound, I'm making a video of all the PS3 games I've been buying lately, because I know what's going to happen. PlayStation, give it some time. Once that service is steady, active, probably next year, they're going to announce they're taking down the PS3 and the Vita store permanently. That's what they're going to do when people don't care anymore. And it's sad, right? Because again, I think the customer loses out. Do you lose out on your access to new stuff? No. But do you truly own your games? Definitely not. And is streaming the future? Well, for Xbox, certainly, as they've built up a cloud division and they absolutely believe in it, and they're architecture, their infrastructure has proven that it can be somewhat worth believing in as the streaming technology is getting better. But the internet, for many people, isn't quite there, or even close to quite there, where that's why people go physical. That's why they don't do the online only. And that type of stuff matters. This is why there's many Nintendo gamers out there. They don't have these DRM checks. You just click in the cartridge. There's no day one update. You just put it in there and you can play the game offline. And kudos to Nintendo for at least that. But what's happening now is we're moving to a subscription only future. The big three have them. We got other companies with their own stuff like Ubisoft. We have Fallout 76's Fallout First membership program, GTA Plus. We've moved into the era of now we're going to start to bloat up with these subscription programs, and it's going to become suffocating. Prepare yourself, because right now we're sort of still, believe it or not, in the infancy of all that. But there will come a time where I could totally foresee we're going to see Game Pass, probably because they're the biggest one, say, hey, when it's big enough and it's on, say, your smart TV, it's on your phone, it's very easily accessible, and their audience is that big, they'll say like, yeah, it's available only on Game Pass, not Xbox, but only on Game Pass. I could see that being a thing as we really drive into that digital future, right? Where it's just like, this is the platform, because Xbox talks about it in that manner, right? They say Xbox and they say Game Pass separately for a reason. To them, it's a platform, and that platform will, I imagine, be used. Maybe not now, maybe not for another 5 years, but I can imagine in due time that will be something that occurs. And that's something I personally grapple with a lot. I've said it multiple times, so I apologize for my redundancy. It's why I started a retro gaming channel. I get this feeling internally, and I imagine many others will as time progresses, that we're moving away in a lot of manners from what made gaming so great, right? The games are getting better. I think of Elden Ring. It's like, well, we never would have gotten anything close to Elden Ring back on the PS2. So that's where gaming's getting incredible, right? There's so many awesome things coming out, but the ownership of them, the way people are sort of flying through the content, doing these hand-waving takes over things, hot takes on Twitter, and kind of destroying the medium in a way. These hand-wave takes, kind of like, whatever, like another game on to the next, because we're getting so much content like people do on Netflix, like people do on Disney Plus, where, this sucks, whatever, just another thing to watch. Let's go find something else, right? We're in such a stimulated society, and gaming, of course, being stimulating, it makes sense it would head in this direction, but I always viewed it as more methodical, right? You go through the game, there's a conversation, there were gaps in releases, but now, you look at the beginning of this year, man, I'm exhausted. Look at my review playlist. It's absurd. The amount of open world, huge games I've played, the amount of hours I have logged on video games, and these are not small gaps between these titles, right? And I love my job, never gonna complain, so don't get me wrong, I'm not asking for pity. But I do feel bad for the consumer in just the way that we're getting smashed with content. And I think for some creators, there's not enough room to breathe, to grow. Again, there's so many pros and cons to this conversation. My goal isn't to tell you you're wrong if you're all about subscription services. My goal really was to inform people on where I feel the industry is going. And it's going in a lot of ways a good place. There's more awareness being spread on better work environments. There is a growth of independent developers. There is a growth of revenue in gaming. Like, I love watching this industry grow, and I'm so happy to be alive while it's happening. Like, I remember when I was younger, anime and video games, like two things I dug a lot. It's funny because anime, I remember saying I didn't like, but I love like Naruto, Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z. It's like, that is anime, dude, just really popular anime. But I was like, no, it's not. Anyway, those were the two things, right? Anime and video games that were like, kind of, when you said you liked them, you were judged. And it's so funny to see how both of those are some of those popular things on Earth now, and they're growing. So to be alive during this, to be a part of it in this very small way is incredible. And I know subscription services are a big component of that. And, I accept it. It is what it is, but it's something that I grapple with. Because you look at what Xbox did, for example, with Halo Infinite, right? Where they give you the disc, the physical copy, and the disc doesn't even have the campaign on it, where you have to download an update to actually play the game. Like, the disc is literally a dud on arrival. If you have no internet, which I know is not realistic to really talk about in today's day and age for many, many, many people who are enjoying this, once again, luxury hobby. But again, if you don't have good internet and you want to play Halo, you might have to wait days to actually play it. And the fact that it's not just there on disc is insane to me. But you can see Xbox is slowly kind of weaning off of the physical stuff. So it's really sad, but there is a lot of good with it too. And anyway, this is my view on the future of video games, with now the third subscription service of the big three announced, and we can start moving forward with that in mind. So what do you think of everything that's going on here in the games industry? Are you for it? Are you against it? No judgment here. I totally get both sides of the argument. I just wanted to pose my thoughts on it all. So fire away. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.